Make sure everything is working, moving, working. It's working. Hello. Okay, thank you. Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to make sure that you guys can hear me. You don't have to come early and relax into it, right? And make sure that the mic is working. Yeah, no, it's the ring light. Yeah, I know it's weird because I'm talking to you and okay. Yep, all is good. So we can get started when people start coming in. And really, I'm supposed to start at 1:11. So it's 1:01 now. 10 more minutes. Probably I'm starting these too early, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, but I have to go live to make sure that I can that people can hear me. So right. No, I stepped on my hair. I'm supposed to have oomph. No oomph. Just fuzz. That's all right though. Anybody here as yet? Or everybody is still reeling after some fest? If you're here, type in the chat. TikTok, I can see you. Thanks for being here. Yeah, we're gonna start at 1:11 as we're supposed to. So it is fine. Right? Okay, great. Just setting up things, guys. Let's see how it works. Hi, guys. Ricardo. Happy Sunday. You are the first one here from YouTube. So happy Sunday to you, my dear. Today we're going to talk about Boundaries. It's a really, really great book by Dr. Henry Cloud and John Townsend. So it's a really good, really, really good book. He talks about boundaries in the workplace, boundaries at home, boundaries with friendships, boundaries with everyday, just everyday life. Right? So thanks for being here, Gaza Ricardo. And my goodness, did Cartel not take the Sunfest? He is so he's amazing, man. He's amazing. But he wasn't the only one. There was a lot of lots. You know what? The lineup was pretty good. I'm only upset I didn't see it live myself, but the lineup was good. But apparently there were some other things that happened afterwards that made it less than the best experience, apparently, to some. So guys, Ricardo, we're gonna start soon. Thanks for being here. I'm supposed to start at 1:11, but I just like to come early just to make sure that the mic is working. Tell me what your thoughts were. We can chit chat in the meantime. What were your thoughts about it? Apart from our prince there, Cartel, who else do you say took the show when it comes on to the performance? My hair is just doing what she wants to do today. It was supposed to be curl and oomph, but there's no oomph. Yeah, tell me what you thought about it. Like, what was the guys, Ricardo? Who else did you like, or who else you thought took the show? I don't see a response. This mic is always trying to do something else. Let me drop the link as well since we're here. Let me drop the link. Might as well. I'm gonna have to do it later because this is StreamYard. I think Massacre did good. Yeah, Massacre did. I like Massacre. Massacre was aggressive. He did well. He did well. I do understand why he was after why he was before Skeng though. That didn't make sense to me. But I guess not everything will make sense to me. But I found that kind of Massacre before Skeng, really? Don't know. What did you think about that? You think that the placement of Massacre was good? You think that he should have gone before Skeng, or what do you think, Gaza Ricardo? Okay, guys, we're gonna start soon. We're just waiting for everybody else to come in. It's 1:08, so we have to give them some grace. Just talking with our buddy here, Gaza Ricardo, who is also a dancehall lover, dancehall Jamaican music lover. Yeah, he thinks so too. Yeah, that's right. I thought that the placement was kind of off. And then I thought, maybe that was one of the reasons why he was probably not reasons why, Julia. One of the reasons he was upset. Maybe. Because I wouldn't place him before. No disrespect to Skeng. I like Skeng. But then again, you know what? The way it ended, probably it was good that he wasn't too late. You know what I mean? Because it was overshadowed by, what happened with the crowd and the stampede with the crowd and everything. So maybe it worked out for the good, that he actually got to perform early and relax early. I don't know. But I don't know. I don't think he should have been before Skeng, to be honest, but we'll see. I might be wrong. We might be wrong. What time is it now? 1:10. So guys, we're almost there. Hi, TG Media. Thanks for coming. Yeah, me and Gaza Ricardo were just talking about Sumfest just to just to shoot the breeze a little bit before we start at 111. Yeah, and he agrees with me that Massacre being before Skeng was kind of right. But greetings, greetings, greetings. Thanks for coming. We're about to start class. Class is about to start. So let me pour my drink so I don't have to leave you guys again today and go downstairs. I was prepared. So good. I make good drinks. I want I know. I know. It was so funny. And Kata trolled Beanie Man so bad that it was so it was so funny. Oh my goodness. Hi Rick Storm TV. Thanks for coming, my brother. This is guys, my Canadian friends on TikTok and on Instagram. If you're interested in Jamaican music, dancehall music, right? Check out Rick Storm TV on YouTube as well as Imhotep University. So there are two channels you should look into. Rick Storm TV, he does lives and he also does vlogs and he breaks down what's the current events, what's going on in our dancehall industry in Jamaica. And Imhotep University, he also breaks down what happens and he talks about politics and other things as well. Right? So two very, very good channels that if you want to learn more about Jamaican culture and Jamaican music and what's going on, current events, check them out, YouTube. Oh, Imhotep's not here yet, TG, but I just mentioned him because, we mention our friends. All right, it's 112. What? 112. Misty not here yet either. She might be busy today. We'll see. All right, so good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to have you here with me today. Thank you so much for joining me for another, let's say, fact-filled, thoughtful, meaningful, and productive use of your time here at the Business Matters podcast. I'm your host, Miss Julia, A.K.A. Miss Bluefire, and I created this platform with one clear purpose: to give back to our community of entrepreneurs, particularly to those of you who are building your own businesses, right? Or dreaming of building your own businesses. We all know entrepreneurship is very, very hard. It's not easy. So whether you're just starting out or you've been on the journey with us for some time or, by yourself for some time, access to the right tools, access to the right knowledge and the right mentorship, it makes all the difference. Now, unfortunately, many aspiring entrepreneurs, they don't really have, a lot of times they don't have the time, resources, or the guidance to find what they need to move forward with confidence. So that's where our podcast comes in. Every 2 weeks, I read a new book, carefully selected, not just for its popularity, but for its value. So these books are filled with practical insights, timeless lessons, and powerful strategies that will help you grow, lead, and succeed no matter where you are in your business journey. So, my mission with you and with our audience and with our panel is to break down these books and share the key takeaways with you in a very accessible, relevant, and most importantly, actionable way. So, think of our channel as a personal shortcut to the lessons that have transformed the paths of many entrepreneurs, myself included. But more than that, we are a space for community. So this is a space where we can learn together, we grow together, and we stay inspired, especially when the road gets tough. So my goal is to make sure that the knowledge from our books is no longer a barrier for you, anyone with the vision and with the drive to create something meaningful with their lives. So if you're serious about building a business and growing your mindset and investing in your personal and professional development, you are in the right place. Welcome to the Business Matters podcast. This is where we ignite ideas, we empower minds, and we support the future of entrepreneurship. So we're a bit behind today. So today we are doing Boundaries. Very, very good book. Excellent book. And I'm pretty sure You guys are going to find ways that it's applicable to your life, right? To your lives. So today is going to be a very, very empowering live stream, right? We're going to unpack one of the most transformative books, as I said before, for personal freedom, mental clarity, and healthy relationships. Don't forget that, boundaries, right? It's by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend. So if you've ever felt overwhelmed by guilt, or you ever felt like you're stretched too thin, or you ever felt like you're stuck in a toxic dynamic, you know, or if you ever felt like where people constantly push you around or push your limits, this conversation really is for you. Boundaries isn't about cutting people off. It's about taking your personal responsibility for your own life, right? While respecting the freedom and the dignity of other people, right? Now, once you understand where your responsibility ends and where theirs begin, that's when your life will change. That's boundaries. So today, in today's sessions, we're going to go chapter by chapter to explore not just how to set the boundaries, but also how to enforce them in a world that doesn't really honor them, right? So whether it's your family, whether it's your romantic partners, whether it's your friends, co-workers, or even yourself, this book will give you the emotional, spiritual, and practical tools to say no without shame, without guilt, and yes, without resentment. So I hope you have your pen. I hope you have your paper ready and an open mind, right? So let's get ready to take back your time, your energy, and your peace today. Hi, Imhotep, blessings. Thank you for being here. That's one of my brothers. So that's the one I was telling you about. Check out his channel, Imhotep University TV. Excellent channel. Excellent channel, excellent thought leader. Right? So now we are going to start. Let me make sure I am sharing the correct screen with you. Cancel that. Share. Let's make sure that you can see. Hi, Misty. Greetings. Misty's here. Everybody, we are safe. Misty, TG Meter was telling you hello. I told him we don't know if she's going to come today, right? Because your presence is always, always honored and appreciated, right? But we never take it for granted. So if there's ever a time that you can't make it, our grace is yours, but you always have a shiny seat at our table. Miss T, she's top of our class. You guys know her. She's going to be very, very popular because she always gets the answers right. All right, guys. So today we're doing Boundaries by Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend, right? So, of course, I always do this. What are boundaries? Are you guys seeing the screen properly? Are you guys seeing everything on the screen? Thanks. I'm always happy to be here. Always happy to have you here, sister. Are you guys seeing the PowerPoint on the screen? Yeah. All right. So we're going to go through what are boundaries, boundary conflicts, boundary problems, boundaries and your family, boundary development, boundaries and friends, boundary laws, the 10 boundary laws. I love that chapter very, very, very much. And I think you guys are going to love it too. And boundaries and spouse. All right, let's begin, shall we? Yes, we shall. All right, so the definition of boundaries. Boundaries define where you end and where someone else begins. Never forget that. Where you end and where someone else begins, that is what the boundary, that's what a boundary is, right? Now, the importance of boundaries. Healthy boundaries protect your time, they protect your emotions, and they protect your values. Never forget that. Without boundaries, resentment and burnout follow. Okay? So you have to have boundaries to protect yourself. You have to have boundaries, right? To say no. and say it without guilt. Okay, so here are some quotes from this first chapter here. Clarification of identity. This is what boundaries is. Boundaries define us. They define what is me and what is not me, right? Talk about the recurring theme. What did I mean? I always give myself notes when I'm doing these because I know there's something else that I need to say that I just couldn't write. Clarification of identity. Boundaries define us. They define. Oh, yeah, that's a recurring theme in all of these business books, right? They define what is me and what is not me. In other words, so you have to know what is you first, right? You have to know what you stand for and what you won't put up with, right? You have to know you first. You have to study you. Oh, sorry, I missed something. Responsibility. We are not responsible for others. We're responsible to others. This is a quote that he had in the book. Now, what he meant after reading the book and hearing more of his thoughts, I understand what he meant. What he means is we are responsible to others. In other words, we are responsible of how I treat you. In other words, I am responsible for my actions towards you. I am responsible for what I do to you. That is in my control. Okay, that's what he means. But I'm not responsible for you. Okay? So that's the difference there. So that's what he meant when he says this. He says we are not responsible for others, we are responsible to others. Okay? Yeah. So we do take some ownership in what we put out there and how we treat others and what we do to other people. Okay? Never forget that. All right. Next slide. Okay, here it is. A day in the boundaryless life. So, quotes, just as homeowners set physical property lines around their land, we need to set mental, emotional, and spiritual boundaries for our lives. That's his quote. I love that quote. People with poor boundaries confuse boundaries with selfishness. This is true. 100% this is true. They do not understand that boundaries, it doesn't mean that I don't care, but it means that no, I will not do this today because I need to take care of myself, right? It's teaching people where you start and where they begin. But people who don't have good boundaries, or people who benefit from you not having good boundaries, there's also that, right? The people who are manipulators and people who are users, people who benefit from you not having boundaries, right? They will see your boundary as selfishness. Anyhow, when we fail to set boundaries and hold people accountable, we feel used and mistreated. This is true. This is just your feelings. That's why I say your feelings are important. This is your feelings as a GPS telling you, I do not feel respected here. I do not feel right here. You need to follow that because it's an indication from yourself, right? Telling you that, hey, something is off here, right? Okay, so my notes. People introduce chaos to your life and chaos to you from lack of boundaries, right? Emotional burnout, you'll get emotional burnout. You'll have guilt, right? And you'll have limited personal growth. And we do not want that. That's why clarity is key. And clarity is one of the kindest things that you can give to people, right? Because it eliminates chaos. Passive aggression arises from boundary issues. Yeah, you can see it in the workplace all the time. People become passive aggressive, and try to sabotage other people, etc., because they have resentment. And why do they have resentment? Because their boundaries were crossed somehow, right? But here it is again. We are responsible to people, but not for people. Did you make your boundaries clear? If you didn't make your boundaries clear, it's not a boundary. It's a wish. Sorry for sounding harsh, people, but that's I'm tough where it matters, right? I'm soft most of the time, but I'm tough where I need to be tough. I'm not tough where I don't need to be tough. Okay, so boundary problems create confusion in relationships, all type of relationships. Remember, this is a business matters channel, so all types of relationships. workplace, everything. Okay. Chapter 1 is a mirror. People's exhaustion might not be about too much to do, but about too many unspoken yeses that they didn't really want to actually give. That's my thing. Never give a yes that you don't want to give. That's one of my cardinal rules. Because whenever I give something, either my time, anything, resource, anything at all, it's from a good place. If I can't feel good about doing it, I'm not going to do it. If I don't feel like I want to, I'm not going to do it. And you should always be true to yourself that way, because that's you honoring yourself. You see what I mean? You honoring yourself for whatever reason, for whatever the reason is. If you don't feel good about something, don't do it. When it comes on to giving, right? Don't do it, because you betray yourself. And you know what? If you want to get biblical about it, that's why too it says God loves a cheerful giver. Give from a good place, right? So a lot of people, they have burnt out, they feel burnt out, right? And it's not necessarily because they have too much to do, but it's all the yeses that they stretch themselves thin, what they didn't want to do in the first place, and they become very resentful. All right. So now, what do boundaries look like? And I made it short and sweet for you guys, so you guys can call in anytime, and you guys can call in anytime and add to the conversation. All right. So, what does a boundary look like? Quotes. We are not supposed to be passive. One second. Yeah. We are not supposed to be passive victims. Now, he's a Christian, right? They're Christian. So there's some Christian elements in the book. I hope you guys don't mind, but it's the book review. So it's in there, it's in there. I'm not going to take it out. So this is his quote. What he says is, we are not supposed to be passive victims. God expects us to be assertive stewards of our lives. I will say whatever your God is, or whoever your God shows up to you. He says, just as a fence keeps the good in and the bad out, our boundaries are supposed to protect us. These are facts, right? So my notes are, boundaries are gates. They're not walls. They let in the nourishing, right? And they keep out the harmful. Okay, so think of your boundaries like that. Don't think of it as, oh, I'm blocking people or it's a wall. No, it's actually a gate for you to gatekeep what comes in and what goes out. Okay, so don't forget that. They define personal limits. Oops, where did I go? What did you do? Okay, they sorry. They define personal limits, your thoughts, your feelings, your values, and your responsibilities, right? So, yeah, your personal limits, right? And healthy boundaries promote respect in interaction. This is fine. This is your facts, right? You don't talk to the person who works with your family the same way you talk to your father or your mother. There's different boundaries there, right? Different boundaries. And boundaries change and evolve over time. Okay? For instance, let's say when we were kids, me and my sister, right? She would, or I would just go in her room. We have that free thing. I go in her room and just sit on her bed. She didn't mind that. There was no boundary crossed there because I'm her sister, right? Now that she's married, I have to respect the fact that she's married. She lives in her own place, right? If any door at all is there for her, I have to knock on it to make sure that everything is okay and I can come in. And even still, because that's the bed that she shares with her husband, I'm not going to just go sit on the bed. It's just manners. It's just respecting boundaries. She never had to tell me that. It's just respecting boundaries, right? And respecting the other person, right? So boundaries can change over time. And relationships, you have to allow boundaries to evolve and to change. Okay? So don't forget that. And don't let people hold you in the boundaries from 10 years ago. Because as you grow and develop, you're going to get different boundaries. These are facts. I didn't make the rules. Okay. So healthy boundaries promote respect in interactions. Exactly. Right? Exactly. And also the level of friendship where you meet people, even with friendship, the level of where you are with people, different boundaries. Okay, different boundaries. All right, now boundary problems. Let's get straight. We're getting straight into the meat of the matter today. Getting straight into it. Boundary problems. Here's some quotes. So there are different type. There are 4 types of people that usually have boundary problems. Some of them are the aggressors. Some of them are the receivers, and we're gonna go through them. So here are some quotes to introduce it. Compliance. These are the people who are always compliant. Compliance take on too many responsibilities and they set too few boundaries, right? Not because they don't want to, but because they fear the consequences. So sometimes you find even too in a family dynamic, there's someone who they call for everything and the person is tired, right? Or someone who they expect to do everything and the person is like they can't have any life for themselves. That is toxic and that's a compliant. And a lot of times it's because of the fact that they fear losing the validation from said family, or they fear um, the consequences of what that toxic family would do to them, ostracize them, punish them, throw words at them, anything. I'm sure you all can think about it. Think about someone like that, if not someone in your own family, right? Compliance. Same thing with work. These people are at work, they're always burnt out, right? Because there are a lot of people who don't have a conscience and they will take advantage of compliance. But at the same time, remember, we are responsible to people, not for people, right? So that person who is compliant, they're going to have to learn how to be less compliant. Okay, avoidance. There's another one, avoidance. Avoidance have boundaries, but they close their doors on the wrong thing. So you find some people like that, like they kind of block their blessing, like type of thing. And a lot of times it's because they just want to stay comfortable, or they're not really believing that they don't want to hope, right? Because they've been let down so much. They don't want to hope for or seeing something good can come out of it. So they just rather avoid it, right? So these are the avoidance, right? So these avoidant people, they also close doors on sorting things out and talking things through, because they think that if they ignore it, it will go away, and it never goes away. It comes back up in some other form, some other argument. I need to make this again. It's really good. Okay. Controllers now. I'm sure you guys know some of these. Controllers. They believe the world or others exist for their own needs. So they're in charge. You have no life. You have no life. You do what I say you need to do. These are the controllers. Every family, well, most families have some, right? They feel like as if they should control everything. And so it is a terrible mix when you have a controller and then and you also have a compliant, right? Who you think is the one bullying who, or who is the one, you know, is feeling like they're entitled to people's time and people's energy. And a lot of times these controllers, they rule with fear, like what Imhotep was talking about the other day when it comes on to respect or following orders. Some people just do that out of fear, right? So these are the controllers. They disrespect other people's boundaries. And if you ever have a boundary with a controller, all of a sudden you are persona non grata, right? You're selfish, you're this, you're that, you're the worst person in the world because you said no, this is not for me at this time. So they disrespect other people's boundaries. And then you have the non-responsives, right? The non-responsive. These people are usually very, very passive aggressive too. And they just ignore your needs. They just They just ignore they just ignore your needs, right? So that makes terrible managers too, right? Okay, so let's pick it up a little bit. So quotes: compliant behavior. Compliance, they take on too much responsibilities, as I said before, for the feelings of others. They take on too much responsibility for the feelings of, so they'll feel like, oh no, well, she asked me to do this, and let me just do it. You don't want to do it. You know you shouldn't be doing it, and you have your own work to do. Why are you doing it? Right? Controllers, they can't hear no. You tell them no, and it's like they can't hear no. They're hearing something else. Right? So here's the controlling dynamics: avoidance and non-responsive. Avoidance say no to the good, while non-responsive says no to the need of others. So there's a difference there, right? So we can't lose sight of the difference. All right. So common boundary types, common issues: compliant, avoidant, controlling, non-responsive, boundary types. Hi, Sophia Jacobs. Good afternoon, my dear. Good afternoon. Feel free to call in anytime with your insights. Thank you for coming. Beautiful to see you. Right? So there are common boundary types. You're the boundary types, right? Compliant, avoidant, controlling, and non-responsive. So guys, remember those four, right? Underlying causes: unhealed trauma and family patterns. This is what often causes poor boundaries. Okay, unhealed trauma and family patterns. Okay, that's what causes it. So to start healing, you need to identify your type, right? That is how you have to look at yourself, really look at yourself and say, which one am I? Am I an avoidant? Am I a compliant? Am I a controller? Or am I a non-responsive? Okay, these are the things that we have to look into ourselves and actually look at. And you know what, if you have somebody in your family that you trust, that you know is pretty balanced, just ask them. Say to them, how do you experience me? Which one of these do you think I usually fall into? But be careful now. What I always say: don't ask for things that you don't want the answer to. So if you're really ready to hear how people experience you, then try it. But you really should have some kind of self-awareness too, to know which one am I, or which one do I usually fall into, if you're going to be honest with yourself, right? If you really want to start healing, you're going to have to be honest with yourself. So now we're going to go to boundary conflicts. All right, so now boundary conflicts, exposure of dynamics. That's what happens when you put up a boundary. It shows what type of relationship you have. Done it many times, tried it many times, tested it many times. Very true. Boundaries expose unhealthy dynamics and they force change. So if you have a friend or a family member, right, and you tell them, no, this is off limits, look at how they react. If they react so offended that you could actually tell me no, or I'm so offended that you are thinking in a different way, that shows you that shows you the unhealthy dynamic there, right? Or you say, you know what, I really need this right now. I really need a break. I really need some time. I really need whatever. And the person ignores you. That person is ignoring your needs. What does that make them? I'm going to leave it up there for you guys to answer. What unhealthy person is that? Avoidant, right? All right, now you have to expect resistance when you put up a boundary. This is why what I do when I meet new people is I put up my boundaries right away. Right away. So and that's just who I am anyway. But you're not going to be broken bad into doing something. You understand what I'm saying? I put up my boundaries right away because I want to live in peace with you. Right? If I don't care and I don't think that you're going to exist long in my life, then I don't care. I'll move on. But if I know that this is somebody that I'm going to have to live with, this is somebody I'm going to have to work with, this is somebody who's going to be in my space, you need to recognize my boundaries. But you know what? I do that with everybody, to be honest. Right? And there are different boundary levels depending on who the person is and in what scope you're working with them or meeting them. Right? Okay. So now expect resistance. Right? Now, when you set boundaries, expect, especially from those who benefit from your lack of them, you're going to get some resistance. So, in other words, say you have been in a certain dynamic, family dynamic or work dynamic, and you're just learning about boundaries because you're just starting to heal, right? Let's just say that. Okay, fine. That's good. Now you start to put up boundaries and you say, you know what? No, I actually do have to leave at 5 p.m. So I can't stay and help you, right now. The controller will be like, what? No, I asked you to. You have to stay, right? Or the avoidant to not hear you and don't care about your needs and say, but why can't you just stay till 5:30? What about 5:30? What about 4? I'm telling you, I need to leave at 5 because my mom's sick or whatever. Even if you don't even have to give a reason. People, that's what I always say. No is a complete sentence. You don't have to give a reason. But let's just say you want to have a peaceful life and you have to get along with these people in some respect. So you say, I have to go because of blah blah blah. The avoidance or the non-responsive person, they're like they don't hear your needs. They don't care, right? So expect resistance when you start putting up boundaries, especially from the people who benefited from you not having boundaries, especially as a compliant, if you are a compliant, right? Conflict as growth. Conflict isn't failure. It's a natural part of growth. So whenever you have some kind of conflict that happens because of the fact that you're doing what's best for yourself, right? What Miss T said, amen. No is a complete sentence. Yeah. Miss T, Miss T, you will never believe how many times I had to actually tell people that from last year to this year, when I said, no, I will not be doing that today, or no. Why? No is a complete sentence. There was a no and a full stop. You see what I mean? So you have to be firm with people when it comes on to certain things. Like that's one thing too that I wish more of us knew, that you don't have to be tough all the time, but you have to be tough where it matters and when it counts, right? And there's time and place for everything. It can be soft too. All right, because there's such a thing as soft power, which I really love. Right. So expect the conflict, right? It's a natural part of growth. So don't shy out. So in other words, when you start to make your boundaries and you start to get a little bit of resistance, don't back off your boundaries and say, okay, you know what, just for a peaceful life, I'm going to do this. No, stick to your guns, stick to your boundaries, right? And teach people. That's what you have to do, especially you managers too. You have to do that. All right. So here's some more quotes. Control in relationships. When you say no and the other person gets angry, you've just discovered who had the control in that relationship. That's a controller. Just what I was saying, that's a controller, right? Sign of necessity. Resistance to boundaries is a sign that they are needed. These are facts. These are facts. Resistance to your boundaries, that's a sign that you needed it. Okay? That's a sign that you needed the boundary for that person. For instance, you might have somebody who just shows up at your house. That's a boundary that a lot of people don't. Some people don't have that boundary, but some people do. No, you call first. You ask and see if, and then it depends on the person too. You might think that, right? That's a boundary. You don't just show up at my house and expect me to let you in. You don't know what state I'm in or what I'm doing or what's going on with my family in my house. You don't do that. But some people want to be able to say to somebody, could you call first? But they don't, because in that way, they're compliant, right? And they're annoyed. And that leads to resentment. Don't live your life with resentment, because it will also block things from you. So it's best for you to just be clear with people And whoever can hang, hang. And whoever sift away, let them sift away. That's just facts. That's just the way to do it. That's just the way to do it. All right. So, relationship definition. Your boundaries will define the kind of relationships you have. This is true. Your boundaries will define the kind of relationship you have. Next, boundary development. So, how do we develop those boundaries? How do we develop those boundaries? How do we develop those boundaries? This was also very interesting in the Miss Jacob, Sophia Jacob, Imate probably don't see you right to him because he's working. So he's here listening, and so is Rick, but they're actually working with their hands right now. So don't take it as a slight. If he saw it, he would big you up. Let's see. Boundary development. Okay, so here are some quotes. Boundaries are built through relationship, not rules. True. Right? Children need to be allowed to say no respectfully without fear of loss of love. This is another really big one because our boundaries, they're actually developed or not from childhood. So a lot of times it's the family dynamic that determines if you're someone who knows healthy boundaries or if it's something that you have to learn as you get older when you take responsibility for your life, right? So children must be trained in ownership of their own lives. These are facts. Okay. So key points. Boundaries are learned through experiences with love, right? Discipline and consequences. So childhood modeling shapes boundary development, right? And healing, when you're healing yourself, especially as adults, because no, or we went through childhood traumas. Nobody had a book on how to raise people, especially back in the day, right? When you start to heal, you're going to find yourself actually reparenting yourself. You're going to actually find yourself as the person who would have protected that younger version of you. It happens. It happens. With true introspection, it happens. Right? 6 ways to develop healthy boundaries. Hi, DJ Easy. Blessed Sunday. Blessed. Thanks for being here, DJ Easy. You can call in anytime. We're talking about boundaries, and we're talking about boundaries, of course, in the workplace. We're talking about boundaries as a whole, right? And how it affects family dynamics, workplace dynamics, relationships. So boundaries, that's what we're talking about. So blessed day, DJ Easy. And guys, also other dancehall lovers on TikTok and on Instagram, check out DJ Easy Music Writer. He has wonderful mixes for every mood. Beautiful, beautiful mixes, right? So he's a very talented DJ. Yeah, so 6 ways to develop healthy boundaries. Practice. You come out of your comfort zone, right? And you maintain your own sense of safety, right? Be proactive, right? Be responsible. So you set your own personal limits and you meet your own needs. Okay. Reapproachment. So you realize that you can't do everything or you can't please everyone. Okay. You have to realize that you can't do everything and you can't please everyone, right? And you embrace relationships, but you don't overextend yourself. Remember, we were talking all the time. I'm talking to you about sustainability. Make sure that it's sustainable. Okay. So you don't overextend yourself in any relationship, right? Make sure that it is sustainable, and make sure too that things are being reciprocated, right? Because that's the easiest way for your tank to dry up. So you be unique, you discover yourself and express the occasional need for autonomy, right? And you be brave, you explore the world and you look for new opportunities. All of those suggestions just brings you closer to yourself. So when you get closer to yourself and you realize your likes and your dislikes, that is how you develop boundaries, because that's how you can say, okay, this is where I start and this is where I end and this is where he begins. Okay, because now you're more familiar with what you don't like and what you do like. Some people don't mind you just walking in their room. Some people, they actually do mind. They will say, that's why doors are hard. You're supposed to knock on them, right? So see, Sophia Jacob, see Matep, see you there, right? So that is what it is. So you learning about yourself, you learn boundaries, and you teach your children about private time. You teach your children about boundaries, and you also teach your children about their own boundaries, right? For instance, I had a friend in the Caribbean. You know how we grow up is, if an elder person want to give you a hug, you have to give them a hug, or hi, good morning, good evening, and etc. if they come to your house. So I had a friend who had a little girl, 4-year-old girl, and one of the uncles came to the house, and I was there too, and she was like, give your Uncle Carl a hug, give your Uncle Carl, and the little girl was like, mm. And then he was like, you don't want to give Uncle Carl a hug? And she's like, so the mother was like, go give Uncle Carl a hug and stop being rude, right? Typical Caribbean dynamic. Fine, no problem. So afterwards, I spoke to her and I said to her, listen, if she's uncomfortable with giving him a hug, you have to teach her that it's okay. It's okay for her to not have people touching her when she doesn't feel like being touched, especially as an adult, because that can lead to something. And she's like, Julia, you're right. And I say, yeah, because what you're teaching her is that it doesn't matter how I feel, if someone is older than me, or once it's an adult or seen as an authority figure, then they have rights to touch me or hug me when I don't feel like it. And that's a dangerous thing to teach them. And she said, Julia, I never thought about it. I said, yeah, because a lot of that stuff is ingrained in our culture, right? Whereas, and then now she feels guilty because she's like, well, she don't want to be seen as rude to Uncle Carl, right? So, and she doesn't want to be seen as embarrassing her mother or disobeying her mother, especially in front of company, because even though at 4, they still are little sponges. They pick up everything. They pick up energy. They pick up everything. They pick up scenes. They pick up everything, right? So when I said that to her, she said, Julia, you're right. I said, yeah. So these are little things that we need to rethink what we were taught and see if it's appropriate for our little ones that we are bringing into this world, and we want to bring them into this world better than how we were brought into the world, right? So teaching your children about not only respecting your privacy, but also respecting how they feel about their own privacy and their own body autonomy, that's important. And that's how they'll have more confidence to actually stand up for themselves, right? In an uncomfortable situation. Right. So opposition is fine. Deal with it. Yeah. You could tell the type of mood I was in when I wrote that. Opposition is fine. Deal with it. I swear I'm a nice person. Running into opposition is a natural occurrence and positive indicator that you're on the right track. I said that before, right? What did I put? I put set your boundaries at work. That was patwa. That should have said set your boundaries at work. And there's a capital letter here too. So I must have been tired. Sorry. Set your boundaries at work. You guys know what I meant. So don't let yourself or your work suffer for things not in your job description. Right? That's slowly becomes self-abuse. Hello, Bruce Wayne. Blessings. Glad to see you. Today we're going over boundaries. I don't know how much you heard, but we're going over boundaries and just on it as a whole, and how it affects, the rest of your life with all your other relationships at work, home, and intimate partners and friendship. So don't let yourself or your work suffer for things not in your job description. That can slowly become self-abuse. And we all know people like that, these people pleasers, right? And a lot of people don't have a conscience, so they'll take advantage of these people pleasers. Okay, right? And they're suffering and they have their own work to do. Okay, but they're compliant. Again, compliant. So here are some quotes. Children need to hear and experience both love and limits. These are facts. Freedom without truth leads to chaos. That's true. And truth without freedom leads to rebellion. These are facts too. Think about it. Freedom without truth leads to chaos. If you let them just run wild without telling them that is wrong, you need to not do that, that's chaos, right? And if you just putting the hammer down and telling them what to do without even giving them a little bit of freedom, a little bit of autonomy to think for themselves, they will rebel. This is just human nature, right? And the role of pain is not bad. So pain is a part of the growing process, right? And kids need to experience consequences. I don't mean that you're going to kill them or beat them to, to a pulp, nothing like that. But they have to understand consequences. So here are the boundary laws. My favorite chapter of the whole book. Really loved it. Really loved it. I think you guys will love it too. The law of sowing and reaping, the law of responsibility, the law of power, the law of respect and motivation, the law of evaluation, the law of proactivity, the law of envy, the law of activity, and the law of exposure. So we're gonna get into these. I really enjoyed writing these. You could see how I cheered up when I was writing these. All right, so the 10 laws of boundaries, let's break them down. The law of sowing and reaping. Basically, that law says that your actions have consequences. Okay, your actions have consequences. The law of responsibility. The same thing I was talking to you about before. You are responsible to others, not for them, right? So you are responsible to others. You're responsible for your energy that you give to others, how you treat others, the words that you give to others. You're responsible for, you have a part in it, but you're not responsible for them. So in other words, you're not responsible for how they react, right? You're not responsible for a lot of things, like how they process these things. You're not responsible for that, but you're responsible for what you put out there. Okay, good. Where was I? The law of power. You have power over your own choices, not others. Here it is again. And this is an intertwining theme, like with the other book that we did. Was it Seven Laws? When he was talking about your circle of influence and your circle of concern. Or was that Mindset? One of the books. You see what happens? I remember quotes, but I don't remember which books they come from. So one is your circle of influence and one is your circle of concern. Your circle of influence is where you need to put your mind and your energy, because those are the things that you can influence. You can actually do something about, right? And then your circle of concern, what you're so concerned about, will actually shrink and grow smaller, because you're not putting any attention there. If you can't do anything about it, why think about it? If you can't change it, you have no control over it, right? So the law of power ties beautifully into that. You have power over your own choices, but not others. Okay. Now, the law of respect. Of course, you guys know I love this one. The law of respect. To receive boundaries, you must give them. Okay. You have to give your boundaries. You have to communicate your boundaries. Okay. And that is how they will be respected. I would not know that you don't like me I wouldn't know that you don't like me calling you Miss Piggy. I don't know that you don't like, if unless you communicate to me that, hey, I don't like being called Miss Piggy. I know everybody does it, but I'm trying to get people to stop doing it. Okay, that's a boundary, no problem. I won't do it. Right? But you have to communicate your boundaries for people to get them. Now, the law of motivation. Boundaries, they must come from love, not from fear or from guilt. So in other words, you don't do things fear-based, right? You can't have a fear-based boundary. It should come from the love of yourself and the love of the relationship, because you want it to work and you want it to be sustainable. So you have to be able to honestly communicate what works for you, what doesn't work for you. And then you can see where you're going to place that person. If that person cares or if that person is an avoidant, then they have no business in your life. Okay. Number 6, the law of evaluation. Really love this law. The law of evaluation. Boundaries may hurt, but they should not harm. Okay. So your boundaries that you put up, they're not to hurt other people. In other words, they're not okay. They may hurt their feelings, as again, you're not responsible for them. But in other words, but they should not harm them. Your boundary should not be such that it actually causes harm to somebody else. Hurt, their feelings might be hurt as they learn your boundary. That's fine, right? But they don't harm the other person. For instance, say you have a friend they used to call you all the time, 10 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night. That's fine. But guess what? You start seeing somebody now. So you have a different boundary now because you're in a different situation, right? And so now you have your partner with you, right? Your partner is with you. So you're not going to take gentlemen callers at 10 p.m. at night. So you have to tell them that, listen, yeah, because, he's here and even though really comfortable with that, your friend will say, okay, no problem. That's fine. Your friend will respect that boundary. Okay. Hold on. What's this saying to me? Oh, sorry. Something else on Restream, right? Your friend will, no, he might feel hurt. His feelings might feel hurt for a little bit, but he understands that there is a change now in her life. So I have to respect that. Okay. And if that person is a good friend, then they will respect that boundary and support you. Right. So look at your boundaries and make sure that it's not causing harm. Hurt, it might be. You're not responsible for that. Okay. You're not responsible for others. The law of proactivity. Healthy boundaries are proactive, not reactive. Yes, that's right. The law of proactivity. In other words, you put these boundaries up just in case. It's proactive. It's not reactive. Okay, no, but sometimes boundaries do come reactively. Like for instance, say you just move in with a roommate. She doesn't know you, right? You think that it's normal for everybody to see a locked door and they knock. You would think that, but you don't know what culture she came from. Maybe she comes from somewhere else where they don't do that. Maybe she's just not socially smart. Who knows? So she busts into your room. Right there, you react to it. You react to that situation. You don't react to her. So what you do right away, you be proactive about it and you say, listen, I would like you to knock on the door, regardless if it's locked or not. Knock before you come in because you don't know what I'm doing in here. And I don't like surprises. Right? That's being proactive. Right? Even though it happened from a situation that you had to react to. Right? So remember, I always say to you guys, don't just believe everything that you read. Like actually wait and think about it. Right? So I half agree with him here. But it's true, it's best to have proactive boundaries. But sometimes, because you assume that everybody would have that boundary, it becomes a reactive boundary. In other words, I assume that everybody knows that if somebody's in the bathroom, they're not just going to open the door. You assume that, right? But it happens. So then you have to say, listen, hey, I'm in there. What are you doing? Right? So that's reactive. But sometimes these things happen because you didn't think that you had to say it, right? So being proactive is actually thinking that you have to say. In other words, like, okay, we're gonna live here together now. All right, we're gonna live here. I have to tell him that, okay, I would rather you have your own room and I can come visit you and you can come visit me, right? Because I do, spiritual practices in my room. Okay. So that's me being proactive. So he knows right off the bat that he's going to have his own space and I'm going to have my own space. Okay. So that's me being proactive. Okay. Fine. Or I would say, On Sundays, I rather not have people over on Sundays because it's my time to get ready for the rest of the week. And I don't want other energies coming into the place. That's proactive, right? So you let the person know before you end up in a situation so that you can be on the same page with them before that situation arises. Okay. So that's the law of proactivity, right? But not because a boundary came across from a reaction, that doesn't mean that it's not healthy. So this is where I disagree with him here, right? And that's why I say, guys, not because it's written mean you take it as gospel. Think about it, okay? Because some healthy boundaries come from you actually reacting to a situation because of the fact that you're like, I didn't think I had to say that, but it's still a healthy boundary anyway. Anyhow, we continue. I think I did a very good job at explaining that. I can't explain it anymore. If you don't understand, you're going to have to just get the book, okay? Or I don't know, look it up. Law of envy. Focusing on what you don't have keeps you from owning what you do. That's true. That's a law of envy. Focusing on what you don't have, it keeps you from owning what you do have. That's self-explanatory. The law of activity. You must take action to maintain boundaries. Yeah, you have to take action. In other words, you have to tell people, you have to communicate, you have to let them know, like, hey, this is that, or I didn't like this, or I didn't like that. And it's only because you care. It's the same thing with us women, right, Misty? When we're talking, that means that we still care and we still believe. But when we stop talking, that's when it doesn't make any sense to talk, or we give up. Right? So talking and taking action is actually a good sign. So you must take action to maintain your boundaries. Yes. The law of exposure. Boundaries must be visible to be effective. In other words, you make it clear. It doesn't mean it actually has to be a physical boundary, like a physical thing. It doesn't have to be physical, but it must be visible. It must be obvious, right? And it must be clear to be effective. Misty says, yep. All right. So the 10 laws of boundaries. We're going to continue here with this. Right. Just as a farmer reaps what he sows, we too experience the consequences of our choices. Okay. We experience the consequences of our choices. You are responsible for yourself. Others are responsible for themselves. Remember that, especially if you are the type that is a compliant. Look into yourself. Are you a compliant? Do you feel like you're responsible for this person's feelings? Do you feel like you're responsible for this person having a good day because you said no? That's them guilting you to doing something that you don't want to do. You're being a compliant. Look into yourselves and see what's not working. You can't set limits on others unless you're willing to respect theirs. That's true. You can't set limits on people. Thank you, Misty, for dropping the call in link. That's right. No talking means I've checked out. Me too, Misty. And then once I'm checked out, then I'm checked out completely. Right. So yeah, the what was I saying? Right. So the 10 laws of boundaries. So just as a farmer reaps what he sows, we too experience the consequences of our choices. Yes. Right. You are responsible for yourself. Others are responsible for themselves. You can't set limits on others unless you're willing to respect theirs. That's right. And you see this a lot in family dynamics too. People try to tell you what you can and what you cannot do, or what is appropriate to do, but yet still they don't respect your own boundaries that you created for your own healthy life. That's not love, that's control. All right, so now the importance of limits. Healthy living respects internal and external limits. Okay, there are internal limits and there are external limits. All right, dysfunction comes from violations of those boundaries. Violating these laws, it leads to dysfunction. So I want you guys to go back and think, violating any of these laws here that we just went through, right? It leads to dysfunction. Okay, so you don't violate any of these laws when it comes to your boundaries. Okay? You violate, think about, you violate sowing and reaping. That's dysfunction, because you're going to sow what you reap. You violate your responsibility, right? And thinking that you are actually responsible for everybody else. You're going to have consequences. You're going to burn out, right? You violate the fact that you have power over your own choices, not others. You're going to always be a victim, always going to be blaming somebody for what happened to you. No, you actually had the power over your own choices. Oh, I hit her in her head because she did this to me. No, you still hit her in her head, even though it was you think that it was valid. You still made the choice to hit her in her head. So now you have to deal with those consequences. Okay. Same thing with respect. Same thing with the law of motivation. Anything that if you violate those laws, you are going to deal with dysfunction. Let's continue. Responsibility in love. The law of responsibility says we are to love one another, not be one another, right? The law of responsibility. In other words, I cannot expect him to be me. I can't expect her to be me. And she cannot expect me to be her or operate like her or me to be like him. Again, boundaries. Think about it. Boundaries where I end and where you begin. Okay? Where I end and where you begin. And that's where a lot of, even when we talk on Wickstorm TV or Imhotep University's channels, right? And we talk about, people being led per se. Not because you're in a group means you have to do the group thing. You are still an individual, right? You're still an individual. So that's the law of responsibility. You have to take responsibility. You have to take responsibility for your own thoughts and your own actions. Okay? Now, change ourselves. We can't change others. You can only change yourself. Everybody knows this. And listen, let me tell you something. If you're on the journey to change yourself, you'll be relieved that you don't have the power to change others, because changing yourself is really hard. Take it from somebody who is constantly changing herself, like to get better, trying to get better, trying to improve different things, right? When you get on that journey, you're not looking over at what other people are finding fault with other people, because you know and you have respect for how hard it is to actually improve. It's real work. It's like real work. You don't have time and you don't have the capacity to judge others too harshly, right? Setting limits. When people set limits, they are not being unloving, they're being responsible. And if you don't see that, maybe you are a controller. Look into yourself. You might be the problem. Could be. I'm not saying you are, but I'm just saying, like, look into yourself. Is it a problem when people tell you no? Is it a problem when someone set limits and say, no, I can't do this at this point because I need something else? Do you feel like you're obligated to people and their energy or to their resources? You feel obligated? That's not healthy. You're the problem. There are a lot of people like that. Boundary myths. Yes. Really love this chapter about the myths of boundaries, right? So my point is, society often upholds these myths that hinders boundary settings, right? So we have to dispel these myths because it's essential to dispel them for healing and for growth, right? So here are some key boundary myths according to Dr. Townsend. Hold on, let me get a drink. It's so good. I hope I remember how to make it. All right, let's get back to the lesson. So, key boundary myths according to Dr. Townsend. Let's do this like that. Setting boundaries is selfish. Boundaries imply that you're angry at the person, or it implies anger. No, it doesn't. Boundaries lead to isolation. No, it doesn't. And remember, I told you that he's a Christian. These both these two men are Christians. So the book has a Christian lean to it, right? So I'm not going to take it out. It's the book review, right? So boundaries aren't Christian. So that's, I guess, in the Christian society, maybe some people think that, or say that, right? People who have the most loving relationships are those who have strong boundaries. This is true, right? Boundaries are not a way to control others, they're a way to control yourself. I didn't really agree with that, but that's his quote, right? They're a way not to control others, but to teach others. That's what boundaries are. All right. Here it is, the common misconceptions. Myth: boundaries are selfish, unloving, mean, or unbiblical. Misconception: boundaries actually make relationships healthier. Okay? Kindness in clarity. It is. Remember, I was telling you before, clarity is not cruelty, it's actually kindness. You're being kind to somebody when you actually let them know where you stand on an issue and where they stand to you. That's being kind, because then the person can actually move in clarity and in honesty, right? So the boundaries are a litmus test for the quality of our relationships. This is facts. We were just talking about that. Right? The boundaries is a litmus test for the quality of relationships. If you have some boundaries, right, and the person is freaking out about them, that shows you the quality of your relationship. It really does. Responsibility and freedom. You can't be responsible for someone and also be free of them. That's true. Right? You can't be responsible for. Remember, you're not responsible for anybody. You're responsible to others. You're responsible for your baby or for your children, and you're not free of them. So it checks out. But even when they get to a certain, age, you're less responsible in some ways and more responsible in other ways. So there's that too. So saying no is not a sin. Saying no is not a sin. Boundaries and your family. So family often serves as the foundation for boundary challenges. Remember, I was telling you this from before, right? It starts in a family. Healthy boundaries, they foster clarity in family units. Okay? No, you cannot use my car whenever you want to. I don't care. It's my car. That's a healthy boundary. No, you can't just walk into my house and take my keys and use my car. That's a healthy boundary. You have to ask first. Okay? Healthy boundaries foster clarity in family units. So, common family boundary issues. Here we go. Let's pick it up a bit. Is my Wait a second. I'm hearing my playing. Oh my goodness. My thing is playing in the background. There it is. I didn't even realize it was playing. So, common family boundary issues. Guilt-based control, right? Yeah, guilt-based control, especially if you have a family that operates as a hierarchy, whereas there's this one person that feels like they run everybody and should be in control of everybody's lives. Guilt-based control. Oh, if you don't do that, you're against the family. No, I just don't agree with you. I'm not against the family. I just don't agree with you. But controllers will use that as to their advantage. Then there are the unrealistic obligations, right? That's a boundary issue too in family. Okay, and parentified children, right? Miss T says family members are some of the worst when it comes to overstepping. But oh, girl, yes. Who you telling? I know that. I know that. But we're responsible for our lives, so you know. Yep, I know exactly what you mean. Parentified children. You see this a lot. right? Children who basically have to adjust and they become older before old, or what we say in Jamaica, old before they're young, right? Not allowed to be a child in a lot of ways. Quotes, mature adults see themselves as responsible for their own lives, right? And mature adults will see that as well, that you are responsible for your own lives. A boundaryless child becomes an adult with boundary confusion. These are facts. And that's why you meet a lot of people who don't understand boundaries. But guess what? As we get older, we're supposed to learn the things that we weren't taught. As we get older, we take responsibility for our lives. And if they care enough, they will learn. They can't use childhood as an excuse all the time. Okay. Next, the family systems. Family systems can be the hardest place to set boundaries. Yes, because a lot of times, as I said before, that system will benefit from you not having any boundaries. And because they are already used to you not having any boundaries, because that's how they grew you to be. But as soon as you start to learn, you start to heal, and you realize that this is not healthy, and you start to set your own boundaries within that dynamic, then you're the black sheep, or you are the bad person, or you're selfish, etc., etc. Right? So a lot of family systems, they're the hardest places to set boundaries, but that doesn't mean that you should not, because a lot of it is curses, and sometimes somehow the curse has to break, right? Healthy family boundaries allow love and freedom to coexist. Okay? Not because I tell you no means I hate you, means I don't love you, or means I don't support you. And that's what I don't understand too, especially in friendships, Okay, say Imhotep didn't do this one thing for me. So what? Have you forgotten all the other 50,000 things that he did for you? The one time that he couldn't do it, you're going to be upset? Makes no sense. That means that I have a problem with being a controlling person. And I have a problem with vision, because I've lost track or lost vision of the fact that this person has always been there for me. So these are things that you have to think about, right? And watch your lives and watch the people in it. Okay. Now, healthy family boundaries, they allow love and freedom to coexist. Same thing, right? Honor versus enable. You can honor your parents without enabling dysfunction. That's true, right? You can explain to them that, listen, and a lot of times too, guys, our parents had a different upbringing than us, totally different, right? And they did the best that they could. But if they're willing to listen, you still have to set your boundaries, regardless if they're willing to listen or not. And you can still be respectful, and you can still honor them, right? But just say, I really dislike it. I don't know, something. I don't know, say something is a name calling thing. I really dislike it when you call me idiot, especially in front of people. That's a boundary. That's a healthy boundary. I don't see any parents, doing that willfully, but some do, right? Some do. Okay, so quotes with references. People who tell you you owe me, they are not asking you for friendship. That's the same type of people I tell you that, they do something for you, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, but you owe me. No, nobody owes you anything. True friends appreciate healthy limits, so they will appreciate it, right? Friendship is not about love. Sorry, friendship is about love, not obligation. And that's another thing too, even in families too, right? You have to be obligated to tell this person Happy Mother's Day, and you don't feel like it because the person has not been very motherly to you. Who are you fooling? Why am I picking up my phone to tell you Happy Mother's Day, and I don't genuinely feel that you should even get a Happy Auntie's Day? I'm not doing it. So that obligation thing, you see that in families a lot too. All right. So friendship, it thrives on mutual respect and honesty. Okay, mutual respect and honesty. Boundaries prevent one-sided and draining relationships. Okay, especially in friendships. right? Because one-sided, I'm not going to keep giving and then, you make no effort. That's one-sided. That's draining. And that's a boundary you have to have for yourself, where you have to know when to pull back, right? Common boundary issues in friendships. Friends who demand servitude. I've never had that experience. However, some people have had that experience. So, right? Friends who demand servitude, losing oneself in friendship. Some people are like that, right? As a matter of fact, I heard that there are some ecosystems like that, whereas if you support somebody's channel or some people's channel, they expect servitude from you. It makes no sense to me. But I'm learning. Apparently that's a thing. Apparently that's a thing. A little birdie came and told me. Okay, so next, Bruce Wayne says, people who have issues with you having boundaries are those who benefited from you not having any. Yes, we discussed that before you came up, Bruce. That's right. 100% right. 100% correct. 100%. You guys feel free to call in anytime. Blind allegiance. Of course, Mr. Imhotep would know that, would hear that one, right? His antenna stuck up for that one. He put his hammer down and came to type that. That's right, Imhotep. I know you. I said to myself, but Imhotep ears probably pick up with this one. Anyhow, so true friendship involves freedom, honesty, and mutual respect, not obligation or guilt, right? And even with our friendship, me, Rick, and Imhotep, we support each other as much as we can. We don't feel obligated, right? But it's just mutual respect. So we support each other because we want to see each other win, right? But I know if I can't make it, I know they will never hold it over my head because they know I try, and they know that my life is can be very hectic and very busy, and same for them, right? So I know when they show up is because they try, right? And if they can't, it's because they tried. But then I'll never lose sight of all the other times that they showed up for me. That is friendship. Okay. So protection of friendship. Boundaries protect friendships from becoming one-sided or emotionally manipulative. These are facts. Okay. Confrontation as strength. It's true. Confrontation in friendship is often a test of its strength, and these are facts. So when we do have problems, it's how well we work through the problems. That is what builds the friendship. Okay. People telling you, reciprocating, that's right, Imhotep. People telling you that, oh, we're a friendship and we never have any problems, we never have no discussion. No, what I say to you is, you will never know about it, which is true. Not from me or any of the brothers. You'll never know about it. But of course we do have disagreements, and of course we have wars between us and stuff like that. But we work it out privately, and our friendship always gets stronger. Confrontation is a strength because that means that we're not on the same page at something, but we care enough to get back on the same page of the thing. We care enough to get back at the same on the same page because we want to continue feeling good about each other. Why? Because we want this to be sustainable. It all ties in. See, you guys have to think about friendship differently. All right, so confrontation is as a strength. It is. Okay, so no fear in friendship. Yes, we need to be able to say no to friends without feeling the fear of losing the relationship. I have no problem with that. I have zero problem with that. Right? I say no. And if there is any kind of, and because my friends know me, I don't have many, but the few that I have, they know me. Right? So, voluntary relationships. Friendship is always voluntary. It is. It cannot be forced, manipulative, or guilted into existence. Like some family members, they would do that too because they are friendly with someone. They feel like you should be friendly with them as well. Don't work so. Don't work like that. Okay, I can see the devil's breath in somebody, but you like them. That's great. Cool. Good for you. But that doesn't mean that I am obligated to like them because you like them. I never heard such nonsense in my life. Respect is a test, as a test. That's true. And I do this all the time too. The difference between a good friend and a toxic one is how they respond to your boundaries all the time. All the time. And I do that with anybody in my life, associates, anybody. Let's see how well they respond to the boundaries. Then you can see the type of person that they are. If they're a narcissist, I know people throw that word around a lot, but let's just say they have narcissistic tendencies. A lot of people do. But anyway, just test people, tell them no, and see how they respond. You'll see the type of person that they are. And just don't just be a frivolous no, like be a meaningful no. You know what I mean? My friends don't have to be your friends, and my enemies doesn't have to be yours. That's true too, Imhotep. All right, so boundaries and your spouse. A boundaryless marriage is one in which one partner is not allowed to have thoughts, feelings, or choices separate from the other. You do see this a lot. I don't know why I'm hot right now because my AC is piping cold. I think it's the ring light and the screens. Right. So the boundaryless marriage is one in which one partner is not allowed to have thoughts, feelings, or choices separate from the other. Like, okay, for instance, some marriages are getting tested right now. One might be a trumper, one might not be. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? So to rescue people from the natural consequences of their behavior is to render them powerless. Exactly. People have to feel the consequences of their behavior, right? You can't render people powerless. Well, you can, but it's not helpful. The best gift you can give your spouse is the freedom to face their own responsibilities. That's true. But, you can always be there to help. You can help them if they need help, but you don't do it for them. All right. So many marital issues arises from unclear boundaries. This is facts. Many marital issues come from unclear boundaries, right? That's why it's so important to at first lay out the boundaries, lay out what you need and what makes you feel bad or what makes you feel unloved or less loved, right? You have to be clear on your boundaries. Each partner must maintain their autonomy, right? So conflict avoidance, that's a boundary challenge when it comes on to marriage. So you probably find some people who just say, I don't even want to talk about it. They try to avoid the conflict, but it'll come back up. It always does come back up somehow, some way. Best to just deal with it and nip it in the bud, right? Okay, protection of love. Boundaries in marriage protects love from turning into resentment. Yes. There's a lot of people who are married and they resent their partners, right? And parents and kids too, and bosses. Since this is a business matters podcast, bosses too, managers too, right? There a lot of people resent their bosses and resent their managers, right? Spouses must take responsibility for their own emotions, their choices, and their growth. That's true, right? And not because, and that's another thing. Not because I'm angry at him, it means I'm not going to treat him well. That's I find a lot of people conflate that. Because I'm angry at you, that means I have to treat you like garbage. No, that's not love. I can be angry at you for a certain thing, and I let you know that that's why I'm angry with you about that. But I can't lose sight of everything else about you that's wonderful, right? So that's another thing too. It's like this love-hate roller coaster thing. It's mad. I don't know how people function that way. So yeah, I can be mad at you and still treat you with respect, dignity, and love, and still share your dinner for you. But you know that I'm mad at you at a certain situation until we sort it out, right? So a lot of people don't see it that way. They get jumbled, and it's just not healthy. It's toxic. So spouses must take responsibility for their own emotions, their choices, and growth. Yeah, You want to be in that vibration forever, that's good for you. Not because you're angry or you're having a bad day means I should be angry. I'm empathetic, but I'm not going to be angry just because you're angry, because I have a day too. And you shouldn't want me to be, right? There's that. So healing through boundaries. Boundaries can actually be healing, right? Even when with conflict in the short term. Guys and girls, don't be afraid of short-term conflict. If you have faith in the relationship, whether it's man and woman relationship, man, well, I can't even say that, but whether it's intimate relationship or whether it's boss and workplace relationship, if you have faith in the relationship, don't be afraid of a little bit of conflict. It's there to strengthen the relationship, to get you guys on the same page, because we're different people. We don't have the same minds. Even people that grew up in the same house have different interpretations of events. Like, don't forget about that. So boundaries on children, almost there. So children must be taught boundaries consistently, apparently, right? Yeah. Discipline should teach responsibility, not punishment. In other words, when you discipline them, it shouldn't be to hurt them or to make them feel like as if they're being punished, right? It's to actually teach them responsibility. And they shouldn't see the discipline as a punishment. In other words, they shouldn't see cleaning their shoes as a punishment. It's your discipline. It's your responsibility. You're going to school tomorrow. Go shine your shoes for tomorrow. That's your responsibility. It's not a punishment, right? Remember, and that ties into all the other books that we were doing before too, about how we are seeing things, how we're looking at things, right? How we look at things matters. Okay, principles of boundary-based parenting. Freedom within limits. Yeah, freedom within limits. Respect for individuality, and they teach ownership of action. Quotes: children who grow up with boundaries learn that they are not the center of the world. There you go. Right? They have to grow up with some boundaries. They know that, no, mom is a human being as well, and I need some privacy. Right? Mom has needs too, or your sister has needs too, or your brother doesn't like when you do that. Okay? So they realize that they're not the center of the world. So love without truth creates spoiled children, and truth without love creates fearful ones, right? So if you keep on punishing them all the time, right, and you don't have a softness for them, they become fearful. All right, so safety and clarity. Children need to know where the fences are. That's one of his quotes. And avoiding overprotection. You are not loving your child by rescuing them from every consequence. That's right. They have to learn. Right? Early guidance. The earlier you begin teaching boundaries, the easier it is for the child to internalize them. True. Miss Bluefire's notes. So teaching children boundaries is essential for developing responsibility. It's essential for them developing self-control and also respect. Respect for themselves as well as for other people. Don't forget that. Children need to hear both yes and no to mature emotionally and spiritually. And discipline is not punishment, it's training in love, right? Discipline is not punishment. My grandfather was a big disciplinarian, big disciplinarian. But every time when he punished us or talked to us, it wasn't like a punishment. It was actually discipline. Right? Right. So work related boundary issues. Many workplaces, right? Their frustration, it stems from a lack of boundaries. It's true. Right? So setting limits enhances productivity and well-being. Okay, look, this is where I start. This is where I stop and where you begin. I am supposed to take all the things to the copier and do this. You are supposed to sign them. That's where I end and where you begin. Right? So that's a boundary there. That's my job description. I am not supposed to be signing this for you. Okay? So we set limits right, to enhance our productivity. I know that this is my job description. I'm supposed to move from here to there to there, and you are supposed to do yada 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 after it's moved from here to there to there. There's no confusion there. I do my task, you do your task. Yeah, we can help each other along the way, but we know where our responsibilities lie, right? So work related boundary issue again is difficulty in saying no. Don't take on too much, people, especially if you're not getting paid for it. Don't take on too much, or and actually relate it to your manager, right? And say, listen, this is becoming hard for me to maintain with my job as well as half of her job. How long are we going to do? How can we have some relief? Because this is really draining me now, right? And if it's a company that's actually worth their salt, they will address it because they will see you as important. And you don't allow work to invade your personal time. Okay, sometimes depending on your position, it happens, right? But you have to have clear boundaries. You have to have boundaries, because if you don't, people will take advantage of you. They will. Okay. If you don't set boundaries at work, someone else will set them for you. Yes. Okay. Yes. Work is not your identity, it is your responsibility, not your worth. Well, that's for another day, because you're going to have a lot of people disagree with that. So it's up to you and how you weigh it. That's not my quote, that's his quote. So also boundaries and the digital age. No, this is one that needs real looking at to real looking into. So digital access, it complicates boundary setting. It's true. Intentional limits are needed to protect mental health and intimacy. Like for instance, me, I put my phone on do not disturb, especially when I'm in deep work. When I'm in deep work, I'm in work. I'm working. So I don't want to hear any buzz. I don't want no texts. I don't want no funny memes. I don't want to be distracted. I want to just focus on my deep work right now. That's a boundary, right? Then afterwards, I look at it. I see all the missed calls. I call back my mom. Sorry, I was working. Okay, no problem, right? So a lot of times, because we have these devices strapped to us, or us strapped to them, whichever one you want to look at, right? They can really test our boundaries, but we have to put boundaries for them. For instance, me and Bruce Wayne last week, we were talking about, when you wake up, the first thing you do, don't check your phone. That's a boundary that you put in place for yourself and your own mental health, right? The first thing you do when you wake up, say you want to do something for your mental health, your deep breathing, your gratitude journal. That's a boundary that you have to place for yourself. Now, if you break that boundary because of indiscipline, here's that word again, discipline, because it takes discipline to keep boundaries. That's how it all ties in. It takes discipline to keep your boundaries. Now, if you want to break your own boundary because of your own indiscipline, then that's your problem. You won't have much growth there. Okay. So you put that boundary in with yourself. I'm going to start my day off properly or better because I want change. So I'm not going to reach for TikTok or for the phone right away. Right? Thanks, Miss Steve, for dropping the call-in link. Now, signs of digital boundary problems. If you feel anxious when you don't respond to a bing, ding, bing, right? If you feel anxious when something goes off and you know you just got a text message and you're just not going to answer it, if you feel anxious from that, that means that you might have a digital age boundary problem. Like, why is it that you can't control yourself? Why are you feeling anxious? The text is going to be there. It's going to be there in 20 minutes. The text is going to be there. Right? Now, not saying sometimes you might have a love interest and you see their name come up and you see that, you're like, ooh, so you want to see it. That's different. But even then, sometimes you can train yourself to say, okay, let me put it together, right? But if you just have just random texts and you actually feel nervous and anxious by staying away from answering it, that's something that you need to examine. All right. So also comparing your life on social media with other people's lives. And man, I don't know. You have too much time to me. If you do that, yeah, that's a digital boundary problem because it's not real life. Um, Technology is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. Same thing we say about fire. You have the right to be unavailable. You do. You have the right to be unavailable. You have the right to be unavailable. That's why I like those retreats where it's just silent retreats. You just go there and you put your phone in a basket. Nobody touches their phone, right? The first 2 days are always like, oh my God, you feel like you're really detoxing. Then afterwards, you know, yeah. And then afterwards, you worry about getting back attached to it again. It's okay to be unavailable, right? And for mental health, and anybody who has a problem with you when you're not available, we were talking about that before, were we not? Right. All right. So, resistance to boundaries. So, you must expect emotional pushback when you set your boundaries, especially if it's an old system, like an old family system, right? Or an old relationship because you're changing now, right? Expect some emotional pushback, but don't watch any face. Like what we say in Jamaica, don't watch no face, right? So what? It's gonna happen. That's fine. Let them deal with it. And if they are really supposed to be in your life, they will deal with it and they will understand and say, like, okay, well, it is what it is. Okay, they won't make you a villain for trying to protect your peace and your mental health or your quiet time. That's just it. Common sources of resistance is controllers. Remember, I was telling you those people, especially those, check your family too. And they're also guilt layers. They're the ones who will be like, oh, do this for the family. No, it's you. It's not the family, it's you. Right? And your own internal critics. Well, I am tired, but maybe I could have done it because I just can't bother. No, that's your internal critic. If you know that you need a mental health break and you know you need some sleep, you take better care of yourself, people. This is what this book always finds. All these books are common theme. So much would be solved if we learn how to take care of ourselves and actually listen to ourselves and treat ourselves as if we are responsible for ourselves. Like, treat yourself as if yourself is someone you're responsible for. See what I mean? Yeah. When you start seeing yourself like that and you actually start viewing yourself like that and you actually give yourself that care, a lot of things sort themselves out. That is what we mean when we say alignment. What's supposed to fall off and who's supposed to fall off will fall off. But you have to stick to the path, right? You have to stick to the path, and you can't be afraid of pushback and you can't be afraid of conflict. You have to be able to see it through. Okay? Why are you afraid of conflict anyway? Like, why? And conflict doesn't mean bad feelings. It doesn't mean fighting. It sounds that way, but it doesn't really mean that when it comes on to the context of what we're using it, right? Conflict just means basically opposing minds or opposing thoughts. That's the only way for you to sort it out. Okay. All right. So, guilt is not an indicator of wrong. It is an indicator of change. Yeah, again. Who was I talking to the other day? I was talking to someone, I don't remember. But I was saying to her that not because, yeah, I won't tell you who. I was saying to her, but not because a decision is hard means that it shouldn't be taken, right? A lot of times we think that if a decision is hard or I feel bad after a decision, that means it was the wrong decision. No, a lot of the best decisions that you make in your life and a lot of the ones that actually needed to be made, you feel terrible. You feel terrible after you made them. You feel terrible that you have to make them. But after you have the courage and you actually make them for the greater good, things sort out. So don't ever feel like guilt is an indicator of you being on the wrong path or you making a bad decision. right? Some of the best decisions that you'll ever make will be some of the hardest ones that you ever make. These are facts. Okay. Also, just don't expect people to embrace your boundaries. Don't expect them to embrace them, but so what? They don't embrace them, they're still there anyway. They're still there. The gate is still there. And you have to go through the gate. So even if they don't embrace them with loving arms and skipping to the daffodils and oh, in full support, doesn't matter. I'm working from this time to that time. You will not be able to get me from this time to that time. How you feel about it, that's your responsibility. Remember? See how it all ties in? I am not responsible for you, I'm responsible to you. So I am responsible on how I communicated that boundary, right? So I'm responsible to you. I'm not going to back at you and shout at you, don't call me from that, and don't call me from this to that. No, we don't do that. So you still communicate the boundary, right? With your response to the person. So you communicate with your responsibility, sorry, to the person. So you communicate your boundary nice and sweet, right? And just say, listen, from such and such a time to such and such a time, I'm in deep work. You will not be able to get me. That's it. However they deal with that, that's their problem. But you are responsible to them, not for them. Okay? Don't forget that. Don't forget that. And that is also a lesson in soft power too. You can do things, you don't have to do things loudly or aggressively to be effective. Okay. Yeah, so common sources of resistance, controllers, guilt layers, and internal critics. We said that already, Julia. Okay. So measuring your success with boundaries. Thanks, Miss T. Thanks, Miss T, always. Measuring your success with boundaries. Key points. Progress is about movement towards clarity and peace. Yes. Always. Always. Progress. You'll be able to see your progress is you'll be able to see your progress in your boundaries because you are able to move towards clarity and peace. Okay? Small victories are significant signs of growth. Okay? Yes, TG Media said facts. That's right. When you start to move towards clarity and peace, that's how you know that you're making progress, right? Signs of boundary growth. Again, your ability to say no without excessive explanation. Miss T, remember we were saying that? That I had to tell somebody all of last year and all of this year, no is a complete sentence. There's a full stop. Ability to say no without excessive explanation. I don't have to tell you why. I don't have to tell you, oh, so that you can accept my no more. No, I will not be able to make it. Sometimes I might be nice and I might say, because it's just, it's not nice to golf right now. It's too hot. So now you understand why, right? And that depends on the level of the relationship. But sometimes no is just no, right? Do you want anything else to drink? Do you want some more alcohol? No. People say, why? None of your business. I don't have to tell you why. It's no, I just don't want it. You ask me why, if I want any more alcohol, I don't want it anymore. I'm good. Right? So you are at peace with telling people no. That means that you've gotten stronger, especially if you were a compliant. That's why it's important, guys. That's why I said it's important for you to be introspective and look at where you are in this thing. Which one are you for yourself and for other people, right? And don't be afraid to ask people who actually know you and love you, how do you experience me? So you can get their point of view, somewhere that you trust, right? And take it with a grain of salt always, right? But listen, right? Um, right. So, and then when you experience less resentment, I don't experience resentment because I'm pretty clear, but some people experience resentment because they do things that they don't want to do, right? And they carry around guilt and they really didn't want to do it, but they do it just out of obligation. So they have a lot of resentments. So if you experience less resentment, if you fall into that pile, then you know that you're getting stronger with your boundaries. Yay, good for you. Now, quotes, when you begin to feel peace instead of anxiety after saying no, you're on your way. Yep. Boundaries are not an event, they're a lifestyle. Exactly. So it's not a one-time thing. Pardon me. If it's a true boundary, it's not a one-time thing. If it's a true boundary. If it's a true boundary, it's something that is a part of your makeup. Okay, it's a part of who you are. Okay? That's a boundary. Right? Did I go through this side? Yes, I did. All right. So, ownership of limits. This is what he says here. You are responsible for setting your own limits at work. Yes, you are. You have a job description, but of course there are other things there that come up, right? You are responsible for setting your own limits at work. All right. Say for instance, even a limit like say has nothing to do with work, because those will come up too. Because you have to you are sharing a space with someone or people for 8 hours. So if you have that boundary where you don't like people coming and moving things off your desk, let's make it be known, like, guys, ask me for the highlighter, I will for sure lend it to you, but just don't come and just move things off my desk, right? And put it wherever you want to put it. Just don't do that, right? That's a boundary. And that just has to do with the type of person you are. Some people might not mind it, some people might. Okay, some people might not mind it, some people might. Depends on the work environment, depends on a lot of things. But you are responsible for your own limits. Now, burnout is not caused by hard work, it's caused by unwise boundaries. Again, that's what we talked about before. A boss who doesn't respect your boundaries is not someone you can build a healthy career with. These are facts. So you have to know what type of boss you have, right? And know if that's somewhere that you want to build a career with at that place, or if you're giving yourself a timeline if things don't change. These are things you have to figure out for yourself. Okay, so my notes. Right in the digital space, you have the right to be unavailable and present in your life, right? You have that right to be unavailable. Challenges from technology. Technology challenges modern boundaries. Yes. Always on culture, always have the phone on, and always comparing, right? That's what happens. That's the changes. And the fact that we are not as connected with each other as we used to be. Even when you go to restaurants or so, and you look over and you see everybody at that table on their cell phone, all five of them. And you just laugh because you've been guilty of it before too, right? But you just notice it, and that's when you just become the observer. So you don't laugh. Like, I will giggle, not out of judgment, but out of, look at that. I'm sure I have done that too with me and my buds at a table, right? So skills for focus. This is for me. This is me in a nutshell. Silence, solitude, and focus are boundary skills in a distracted age. Okay. So yeah, silence, solitude, and focus. They're boundary skills in a distracted age. And if any of my friends, if you ask, even if you ask Rick, they know that about me. Right? Even TG me, they know that about me too. Like silence and solitude. And when I'm focused, I'm focused. Okay, challenges from technology. Technology challenges modern boundaries. Yeah, the always on culture, comparisons, and disconnection. We went through that already. Okay, so worth repeating. Expect challenges. You must expect pushback from others. Okay, especially, listen, there's some people that just want to test your boundaries. They want to test to see if they can break them or if they can get away with it. They don't necessarily want whatever benefit they think they're getting, but just the thrill of trying to break your boundaries. Like, for instance, you'll be talking to someone and you say, listen, I have to go now at 9 o'clock. It's 9 o'clock now, I have to go to my bed. They'll continue, and you're like, I have to go to bed at 9. Right? It's now 9:05. They continue. Then you have to just stop them in the track and say, listen, I have to go. Right? No offense. We can continue this tomorrow. They might sound offended, they might sound bad, but you've said it in peace many times. I have only 5 minutes. I have to go at 9. And sometimes they don't even realize what they're doing. So that's why I give people grace. But The boundary is still there. I still told you I had to go at 9, so I'm still leaving, right? So there's that. So that in itself, it takes discipline, guys. It takes discipline, and it takes you not caring about that type of approval, right? The most important approval is the approval of yourself. You told yourself you're going to go there by 9, you're going to go to bed by 9. That is the approval that you need to keep. The relation, the what do you call it now? It slipped me. The reputation with yourself. There it is. The reputation with yourself. Very important. All right. So you expect pushback from others and from your own inner critic. Yes. When you're making changes, your own inner critic will push back, right? When you set new boundaries. And resistance is often the clearest evidence that you're doing the right thing. If you're getting resistance, that's fine. That means you're going against the status quo. That means you're making change. There's always going to be resistance when you're making changes. Never forget that. Right? Growth and pleasing. You cannot grow and please everyone at the same time. That's right, TG Media principle. You cannot grow and please everyone at the same time. Right? The people pleasing thing, it's not going to work for you. It's not going to work. It might work for the short term. You might feel like, oh, everybody is on my side. They're not on your side. They just like the benefits of you being a people pleaser. And as soon as you say no, they're going to discard you because it wasn't real. It wasn't true. Right? It wasn't true. It wasn't real. That's what I said to you guys. I'm tough where I need to be tough, and I'm soft where I need to be soft. I'm soft most of the time, but I'm tough when I need to be tough. And that's what I find a lot of people, they don't understand that you don't have to be tough everywhere. There are certain things you get more, flies with honey, and there's soft power as well, but you can still be tough. Right? And being tough doesn't mean that you have to be loud and boisterous and terrible. Sometimes you might have to, but that's not the first thing that we look to do. Right? So the people pleasing thing, you're not going to get far. Okay? These people probably don't respect you because, to be honest, if I had a friend and it seemed, I would say to her, why are you no. First of all, you're supposed to have a conscience when it comes to other people doing things for you. You're supposed to be able to concede that this is burdening them too much. I won't ask them that. You should have some kind of conscience. If you don't, look at yourself. You're one of the problems. All right, so here's some more quotes. Guilt is not an indicator of wrong. It's an indicator of change. True. So just breathe through it. Like I always say, yes, you're feeling guilt right now. Why are you feeling it? What did you do? Did you do anything wrong? No. It's just conditioning. Breathe through it. Honey, you could get there. Just breathe through it. Okay? And just don't look for validation that much. Responsibility versus lovelessness. You are not unloving for saying no. You're being responsible. Again, validity of boundaries. Others may not like your boundaries, but that doesn't make them invalid. I really love this quote. They may not like them, but that doesn't mean they are invalid. Okay? Quotes, signs of strength. When you begin to feel peace instead of anxiety after saying no, you're on your way. Persistence. Don't measure growth by perfection. Again, you measure it by your persistence. You keep doing it, right? So it's not going to be perfect. And that's with everything. Remember, we're talking about goals before and mindset, and everything ties in so beautifully. It all does. It ties in so beautifully. All right. Lifestyle. Boundaries are not an event. Again, they are a lifestyle. All right. So boundaries are not something that you grow out of. They're something that grows with you. So remember, I was saying the reason I wrote this is because boundaries, they will change. They will grow over time. As you grow and you have more experience and you're like, oh, never doing that again. Or, oh, never putting myself in that position again. You have certain boundaries that grow with you over time, right? Seasons change, but your values don't. They stay rooted. So your values are consistent, right? Your values are consistent. Thanks, Misty. Yeah, I like that quote a lot too. Yeah, you guys call in because we're almost done. Consistent values. Season changes, but values, they stay rooted. That's why I say, like, values and principles, they don't change, right? If they changed, it wasn't a value, it wasn't a principle. Mature living. True maturity is living boundaries naturally and silently, right? Not as a rebellion, but as a rhythm. And I said that like this because as a rhythm, as in it's harmonious, it's in a harmony, right? So your maturity, you're not living your boundary as a rebellion, like, oh, you did this to me, so I'm going to make sure to do that to you. No, that's not what it's about, right? Your boundaries are natural from your values. They're natural. In other words, you don't, there's a boundary. You don't come to me and ask me what Imhotep Warwick said. These are my friends. That's my boundary with my friendship. Don't ask me anything about them or ask me what them say about anything, because those are my friends. This is my boundary into protecting my friendship. And it comes directly from my values, how I value my friendships, right? And how I value these two people. Okay? So that boundary comes from me protecting them and protecting that friendship. And that's from my values of how I treat friendship. Right? Same thing. Right? So your boundaries, you're going to live it naturally and silently. It's going to be natural for you. They stem from your values, and it's just like a rhythm. Okay, so it's very harmonious. Doors, not walls. Boundaries are not walls, they're doors, or I say they're gates. Quiet strength. Mature boundary keepers do not need to convince others. Like, we don't care. Like, honestly, we don't care if you don't like, you don't like it. We simply live truthfully. No, you're not going to just walk in here and just take my car keys and go. I don't care how you feel about it. These are my keys. You're not doing that with my car. It's simple. You have to ask. Regardless if you know I'm going to say yes or not, ask. That's a decent thing to do. Okay? So that's what it is. Mature boundaries, right? Boundary keepers, we don't need to convince you. We don't care. And that's why no is a complete sentence, like what me and Miss T was saying. We do not need to convince you as to why we said no. No. If we feel like explaining to you because of the relationship, then we will. But it's not required for the no to be more valid. It's no. Simple. Deal with it. The presence of self-control. Freedom is not the absence of limits. It's the presence of self-control. That's true. That's true. And I found too that I have more freedom when I'm more disciplined. When I'm more disciplined for certain things, I have more freedom. Right? The less discipline I have, the less freedom you have, because then you're just in a tight corner. You have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do that. If you're, disciplined with your time management and disciplined with other things, you have more freedom. All right. So now Miss Bluefire asks you to look within this Sunday while you get ready for your week. Where do you struggle with boundaries? Where? Do you struggle with it with your family? Do you struggle at work? Do you struggle in romantic relationships? Do you struggle with your friends? Do you struggle with yourself? Or is it just the online digital boundaries that you're having problems with? Ask yourself and actually look into yourself and see which one of the four are you. Which one do you usually fall into? Right? Which one? And do you recognize people? Like, just think back at the people that you have in your lives. Where would you peg some of them in your life? And then what does that mean? How are you going to create boundaries to sustain that relationship, if it's a relationship that you want to sustain? And then follow up. Say you start your boundaries. Are you going to chicken out? Because the boundaries is not for them, Boundaries are never for other people. They're for you. right? They're not for other people. They're not to punish other people. That's what we were talking about. The boundaries are to protect you and your peace. The boundaries are for you. Okay? Don't forget that. So great. Now go start your Monday with clarity. I'm going to hang out a little bit here for you guys to call in. But in closing, basically, guys, this book was great, right? It was good, short and sweet. But setting boundaries is not selfish. It's not unkind. That's what I want you guys to know. It's not selfish. It's not unkind. It's not a rejection of love. In fact, it's one of the most powerful and loving things that we can do for ourselves as well as for others, right? So boundaries, they teach us that freedom that we long for, it doesn't come from people pleasing. It doesn't come from people liking us more. It comes from respecting ourselves enough to stop living in resentment. Okay? Stop living in guilt and stop living in exhaustion. So when you begin to say no clearly, when you stop rescuing others from their own consequences, and when you allow yourself to rest, when you allow yourself to speak your truth, right? And when you allow yourself to make space for things that matters to you, or for you to even heal, that is when everything will change. Expect resistance. It's okay. It's okay. Okay? It doesn't mean that it won't be hard. It will be hard, but it will be worth it. Trust me on that. So, because you're not just building walls, you're building a life. You have to think about that, okay? And this is a life where, love is honest, work is purposeful, and relationships are mutual. That is when your soul will be able to be, I feel good, right? And that's another thing too. It's another thing, but I'll go into that after. But don't apologize for needing boundaries, right? Don't apologize to yourself for, for waiting so long, right? You were never ever meant to live a life of chaos. You really weren't, right? We were meant to live a life of clarity, peace, and boundaries. Okay? So you don't have to do that. Don't have to live that way. So today, right? I want you guys to think about your boundaries. Think about what's not working for you. Think about how your life feels, not how your life looks like, how your life feels. I do not like this mic. Right? I'm gonna have to change this mic. It's kind of cumbersome. It's just always there in the wrong place. Here's my mic. This is really good. Yeah, so think about it, guys. Like, where are you suffering from lack of boundaries? Right? And where do you actually see yourself in the equation when it comes on to boundaries? Or what type of person are you? Right? Which one are you? In the 4 that we talked about today. It'll take some honesty and some introspection, but which one are you? 3:13. We're done at 3:13. Wow, I did this quick. I did this one really quick, didn't I? I sure did. Wow. Yeah, I'm gonna do that from now on. If you guys noticed, I didn't didn't write all my thoughts down, because that would just increase the slides, and I'm gonna talk about them anyway. I'm gonna say it anyway. So it didn't make much sense, right? All right, so since no one is calling in, I am going to wish you guys a great day. And thank you for coming. And I hope that this actually gives you some insight, into your life and what you need to do, or what boundaries you need to reevaluate. Alrighty then. Thanks for coming. See you next Sunday. Next Sunday, wait. Oh no, we actually do have an interview with someone who is really kind of a big deal in the event industry before Sunday. I'll make a post for that. And you guys can always call in and ask questions if you want to. Okay. All right. Adios. And thanks for coming. Bye.